051. Latin.
Actore non probante reus absolvitur.
Translation: a defendant is exonerated by the failure of the prosecution to prove its case. Notes: presumption of innocence.
注：无罪推定。
052. Latin.
Actus me invito factus non estem actus.
Translation: the act done by me against my will is not my act. 053. Latin.
Actus non facit reum nisi mens sit rea.
Translation: the act does not make a person guilty unless the mind should be guilty. Notes: legal principle of the presumption of mens rea in a crime.
注：推定犯罪意图的法律原则。
054. Latin.
Actus reus.
Translation: guilty act. Notes: the actual crime that is committed, as opposed to the intent, thinking, and rationalizing that procured the criminal act, the external elements of a crime, rather than the internal elements that is mens rea.
注：指所犯下的确凿罪行，而不是促成犯罪行为的意图、思考和合理化过程，意指犯罪的外部要素，而不是内部要素及犯罪意图。
055. Latin.
Ad absurdum.
Translation: to absurdity. Notes: in logic, to the point of being silly or nonsensical. See also reductio ad absurdum. Not to be confused with ab absurdo, from the absurd.
注：在逻辑上达到愚蠢或荒谬的程度。另见 reductio ad absurdum。不要与 ab absurdo 来自荒谬混淆。
056. Latin.
Ad abundantiam.
Translation: to abundance. Notes: used in legal language when providing additional evidence to an already sufficient collection. Also used commonly as an equivalent of, as if this wasn't enough.
注：用于法律语言，指在为已经足够的集合提供额外证据之时，通常与好像这还不够同义。
057. Latin.
Ad acta.
Translation: to the archives. Notes: denoting the irrelevance of a thing.
注：表示事物无关紧要。
058. Latin.
Ad altiora tendo.
Translation: I strive towards higher things. 059. Latin.
Ad arbitrium.
Translation: at will, at pleasure. 060. Latin.
Ad astra.
Translation: to the stars. Notes: a common name or motto, in whole or part, among many publications.
注：在许多出版物中所使用的通用名称或格言。
061. Latin.
Ad astra per aspera.
Translation: to the stars through difficulties. Notes: that is, a rough road leads to the stars, as on the Launch Complex 34 memorial plaque for the astronauts of Apollo 1. Used as a motto by the state of Kansas and other organizations.
注：即一条通向群星的崎岖之路，正如为了悼念阿波罗1号的宇航员在卡纳维拉尔角空军基地第34号发射设施的纪念牌匾上的铭文一样。本短语被堪萨斯州和其他一些组织用作格言。
062. Latin.
Ad augusta per angusta.
Translation: through difficulties to honors. Notes: that is, to rise to a high position overcoming hardships.
注：即克服困难更上一层楼。
063. Latin.
Ad captandum vulgus.
Translation: to captivate the mob. Notes: that is, to appeal to the masses. Often said of or used by politicians. Likewise, an argumentum ad captandum is an argument designed to please the crowd.
注：即呼吁群众，经常被政治家提及或使用。同样 ，argumentum ad captandum 是一种旨在取悦人群的论点。
064. Latin.
Ad clerum.
Translation, to the clergy. Notes, formal letter or communication in the Christian tradition from a bishop to his clergy. An ad clerum may be an encouragement in a time of celebration or a technical explanation of new regulations or canons.
注：基督教传统中主教给神职人员的正式信函或通信。Ad clerum 可能是庆祝时的鼓励，或对新规定或教规的技术解释。
065. Latin.
Ad Deucalione.
Translation, from or since Deucalione. Notes, a long time ago, from Gaius Lucilius, Satires. 066. Latin.
Ad eundem.
Translation, to the same. Notes, an ad eundem degree, derived from ad eundem gradum, to the same step or degree, is a courtesy degree awarded by a university or college to an alumnus of another. Rather than an honorary degree, it is a recognition of the formal learning for which the degree was earned at another college.
注 ：ad eundem 学位源自 ad eundem gradum， 达到相同的阶段或学位，是大学或学院授予另一所学校就读学生的礼节性学位。它不是荣誉学位，而是对在另一所大学获得该学位的正式学习的认可。
067. Latin.
Ad fontes.
Translation, to the sources. Notes, motto of Renaissance humanism and the Protestant Reformation.
注：文艺复兴人文主义和宗教改革的格言。
068. Latin.
Ad fundum.
Translation, to the bottom. Notes, that is, bottoms up. During a generic toast, or back to the basics, depending on context.
注：即一饮而尽，用于普通的祝酒场合，或回归基础，具体取决于上下文。
069. Latin.
Ad hoc.
Translation, to this. Notes, that is, for this, in the sense of improvised or intended only for a specific, immediate purpose.
注：即为此，表示即兴创作或仅用于特定的、紧迫的目的。
070. Latin.
Ad hominem.
Translation, to or at the man. Notes, provides the term argumentum ad hominem, a logical fallacy in which a person themselves is criticized, when the subject of debate is their idea or argument, on the mistaken assumption that the soundness of an argument is dependent on the qualities of the proponent.
注：提供了 argumentum ad hominem 诉诸人身一词，这是一种逻辑谬误。当辩论的主题是某一想法或论点时，基于论点的合理性取决于支持者的素质这一错误假设，从而批判提出该论点之人本身。
071. Latin.
Ad honorem.
Translation, to or for the honor. Notes, that is, not for the purpose of gaining any material reward.
注：即不是为了获得任何物质奖励。
072. Latin.
Ad infinitum.
Translation, to infinity. Notes, that is, enduring forever. Used to designate a property which repeats in all cases in mathematical proof. Also used in philosophical contexts to mean repeating in all cases.
注：即永远持续下去，在数学证明中的所有情况下用于指定重复的属性，在哲学语境中也用于表示在所有情况下重复。
073. Latin.
Ad interim.
Translation, for the meantime. Notes, as in the term.
Chargé d'affaires at intérim.
Denoting a diplomatic officer who acts in place of an ambassador.
注：如临时代办一词，表示代替大使行事的外交官。
074. Latin.
Ad kalendas graecas.
Translation, at the Greek kalends. Notes, that is, when pigs fly. Attributed by Suetonius in the 12 Caesars to Augustus. The kalends were specific days of the Roman calendar, not of the Greek, and so the Greek kalends would never occur.
注： 即当诸非实。被苏埃托尼乌斯用于罗马12帝王传奥古斯都篇。Calends 是罗马日历的特定日子，而不存在于希腊日历，因此希腊 Calends 永远不会出现。
075. Latin.
Ad libitum.
Translation, toward pleasure. Notes, that is, according to what pleases, or, as you wish. In music and theatrical scripts, it typically indicates that the performer has the liberty to change or omit something. Ad lib is often, specifically used when one improvises or ignores limitations. Also used by some restaurants in favor of the colloquial, all you can eat or drink. Libitum comes from the past participle of libera, to please.
注，即随心所欲或如您所愿。在音乐和戏剧剧本中，它通常表示表演者可以自由更改或省略某些内容。即兴创作或无视限制时，经常使用 ad lib。一些自助餐馆也使用其口语化形式 all you can eat or drink。Libitum 来自 liberi 取悦的过去分词。
076. Latin.
Ad litem.
Translation, to the lawsuit. Notes, legal phrase referring to a party appointed by a court to act in a lawsuit on behalf of another party who is deemed incapable of representing himself. An individual who acts in this capacity is called a guardian ad litem.
注，用于法律用语，只由法院指定的一方来代表被认为不能代表自己的另一方进行诉讼。以这种身份行事的个人被称为法定监护人。
077. Latin.
Ad locum.
Translation, at the place. Notes, used to suggest looking for information about a term in the corresponding place in a cited work of reference.
注，用于暗示在引用的参考文献的相应位置查找有关术语的信息。
078. Latin.
Ad lucem.
Translation, to the light. Notes, frequently used motto for educational institutions.
注，教育机构的常用格言。
079. Latin.
Ad maiorem Dei gloriam.
Translation, for the greater glory of God. Notes, motto of the Society of Jesus, Jesuits.
注，耶稣会的标语。
080. Latin.
Ad meliora.
Translation, towards better things. Notes, motto of St. Patrick's College, Cavan, Ireland. 081. Latin.
Ad mortem.
Translation, to or at death. Notes, medical phrase serving as a synonym for death.
注，作为死亡同义词的医学用语。
082. Latin.
Ad multos annos.
Translation, to many years. Notes, wish for a long life, similar to many happy returns.
注，愿长寿，类似于 many happy returns。
083. Latin.
Ad nauseam.
Translation, to sickness. Notes, that is, to the point of disgust. Sometimes used as a humorous alternative to ad infinitum. An argumentum ad nauseam is a logical fallacy in which erroneous proof is proffered by prolonged repetition of the argument, that is, the argument is repeated so many times that persons are sick of it.
注，极到了厌恶的地步。有时用作 ad infinitum 的幽默替代品。Argumentum ad nauseam 是一种逻辑谬误，其中通过长时间重复论证来提供错误的证据。换句话说，这个论点被重复了很多次，以至于人们厌恶了。
084. Latin.
Ad oculos.
Translation, to the eyes. Notes, that is, obvious on sight or obvious to anyone that sees it.
注，即一目了然或对任何看到它的人都很明显。
085. Latin.
Ad pedem littere.
Translation, to the foot of the letter. Notes, that is, exactly as it is written, to the letter, or to the very last detail.
注：即忠于文本，逐字逐句或照章办事。
086. Latin.
Ad perpetuam memoriam.
Translation, to the perpetual memory. Notes, generally precedes, of, and a person's name, used to wish for someone to be remembered long after death.
注：通常在 of 和某人的名字之前，用于希望某人去世以后长久的被铭记。
087. Latin.
Ad pondus omnium.
Translation, to the weight of all things. Notes, that is, considering everything's weight. The abbreviation was historically used by physicians and others to signify that the last prescribed ingredient is to weigh as much as all of the previously mentioned ones.
注：即考虑一切的重量。这个缩写历来被医生和其他人用来表示最后规定的成分与前面提到的所有成分一样重。
088. Latin.
Ad quod damnum.
Translation, to whatever damage. Notes, that is, according to the harm or, in proportion to the harm. The phrase is used in tort law as a measure of damages inflicted, implying that a remedy, if one exists, ought to correspond specifically and only to the damage suffered. Compare. Damnum absci inuria.
注：即根据伤害或与伤害成比例。该短语在侵权法中用作衡量所造成损害的一种措施，暗示补救措施如果存在，应该具体且仅对应于所遭受的损害。参见 Damnum absci inuria。
089. Latin.
Ad referendum.
Translation, to reference. Notes, that is, subject to be proposed, provisionally approved, but still needing official approval. Not the same as a referendum.
注：即有待提出，临时批准，但仍需要正式批准。不同于公投。
090. Latin.
Ad rem.
Translation, to the matter. Notes, that is, to the point, or, without digression.
注：即中肯或不离题。
091. Latin.
Ad sumus.
Translation, here we are. Notes, motto of the Brazilian Marine Corps.
注：巴西海军陆战队的队训。
092. Latin.
Ad susceptum perficendum.
Translation, in order to achieve what has been undertaken. Notes, motto of the Association of Trust Schools, an organization of independent primary and secondary schools in Zimbabwe. 093. Latin.
Ad terminum qui praeterit.
Translation, for the term which has expired. Notes, legal phrase for a writ of entry.
注：用于入境令的法律用语。
094. Latin.
Ad undas.
Translation, to the waves. Notes, often used when you've failed and everything's going straight to hell.
注：通常用于当你失败，并且一切都将陷入困境时。
095. Latin.
Ad unum.
Translation, to one. 096. Latin.
Ad usum delphini.
Translation, for the use of the dolphin. Notes, set of a work that has been expurgated of offensive or improper parts. Originates from editions of Greek and Roman classics which King Louis XIV of France had censored for his heir apparent, the dauphin. Also rarely in usum delphini, into the use of the dauphin.
注：表示已删除令人反感或不适当的部分的作品。源自希腊和罗马经典的版本，法国国王路易14为他的继承人法国王太子进行了审查。亦先用于 in usum delphini， 为法国王太子所用。
097. Latin.
Ad usum proprium.
Translation, for one's own use. 098. Latin.
Ad utrumque paratus.
Translation, prepared for either, alternative. Notes, motto of Lund University, with the implied alternatives being the book, study, and the sword, defending the nation in war.
注：隆德大学的校训，结合校徽上的书本和剑，蕴含着两手准备之意，即学习和在战争中保卫国家。
099. Latin.
Ad valorem.
Translation, according to value. Notes, used in commerce to refer to ad valorem taxes, that is, taxes based on the assessed value of real estate or personal property.
注：在商业中用于指从价税，即基于房地产或个人财产的评估价值的税。
100. Latin.
Ad victoriam.
Translation, to or for victory. Notes, used as a battle cry by the Romans.
注：被罗马人用作战斗口号。